Now, before we get started with our today's masterclass, let me just again quickly introduce myself. This is Neha Chauhan here, as most of you would know by now. I'm a teacher expert at Cuemath. I have a teaching experience of more than 3 years. The subjects that I primarily teach are mathematics and reasoning, and the regions that I cater to are India and US. Now, we'll quickly be starting with our today's masterclass, which is on topic, which is a subconcept of statistics, that is data handling. So I request you all to grab a notebook and a pen so that you can solve all the interesting and engaging questions along with me. Also, if you think that there is something important, if there is an important concept or if there is an important formula that you get to see here, you can note that down in your notebook for your future reference. So first things first, the first thing that we do in our masterclass, as you all know, is to see what all do we have in today's masterclass. That is what all we would be going to cover. So that is the table of contents. We will first be understanding the concept of what data handling exactly is. Then we'll see some applications in our day-to-day life. Objectives, which will set our problems, the types of problems that we see in Olympiad level examinations, that is basic type of questions or problems, and then advanced level problems, like which are the ones which are more trickier than the basic ones. And then finally, the learning outcomes, that is basically what are the takeaways from today's masterclass. So here we start with the data handling definition, or the core concept of data handling. So if we were to look at the two words here, that is data and handling. Data, as we all know, is information. It's information in any form that we have. Now, data just in any form can be raw as well, that is, which is not processed, which is not very presentable, or which is not very readable. That is, if you would just look at that data, you would not be able to infer. By infer, I mean you would not be able to understand anything out of that information, because the data or the information which is there in the raw form is not structured, is not well structured. So everything would be haywire and you would not be able to understand anything from that piece of information or what the data that you have. Now, coming to the part of handling, we know to handle anything is called as handling. And the more we structure something, the more we make it readable, presentable, and more easy to understand is called as handling. So when you have a lot of information, which is called as the data with you, which is in its raw form, and when you handle it, that is, you restructure it, you structure it in a way that it becomes very easy to fetch data out of it, to fetch the specific data you want out of that whole piece of information which you have with you, is called as data handling. So all in all, in very simple words or in very simple way, if you were to explain what data handling is like if you have a massive information with you, and which is just scattered everywhere here, like it's not structured properly. So you take that information and you structure it in a way that it becomes very easy to read it, to understand it. And if you pinpointedly, that is very specifically, need a piece of information out of that massive information, it should become very, very easy after you have structured it out. So that whole process is called as data handling. So let's just read the definition that we have here. So again, it says the same thing which I just discussed with you. Data handling refers to the process of gathering, recording, and presenting information in a way that is helpful to others. So if you would just present it in a very raw manner, it will not be helpful to anybody. So you have to present in a way that is readable, presentable, easy to understand. And data is often organized. There are different ways of organizing. Like so far, like if there are parents and teachers who are watching this masterclass, you would already be knowing that there are different ways of presenting the data. We have pie charts, we have bar graphs, we have pictographs. There are different ways of presenting a data, presenting information, so that it becomes easy to read it and understand it. So it says here, data is often organized in graphs or charts for analysis and may include facts, numbers, or measurements. Like it may include any piece of information, like it could be facts, it could be numbers, it could be measurements, or it could be many other things. Now that we have understood the core concept of what exactly data handling is, let's go ahead and see some real life examples of data handling. That is the national census. Like, we in India, we are such a big demographic country, so we have different demographics, and to have people across all over India and to understand them, like there are different census which keep happening every year, for which the government has to keep a track of it, like what is the population of India, how many of them are literate, how many of them are illiterate, how many of them are women, how many of them are men, how many of them are senior citizens, what is the what is the death rate, what is the birth rate. So these are different things which keep happening. Now this is all what we call as is information. And to structure it out, because we know India is such a populated country, to have such a big information, such massive information, if it's clumsy, it will not be very easy for the government to enter anything, to come with a conclusion out of that information. So it's very important that we structure it in a way so that it becomes easy for the government, for the nation to know that what exactly have we understood with every year's census that happens. Then we have voter polls, like elections happen, and then online market surveys that keep happening, that which product is doing well, which product is not doing well, wherein the market is growing, where the market is not growing. So these are different surveys which happen, and just having the information. So you do these different things, that we do national census, we do voter polls, we do online marketing surveys. The information that we receive out of doing all these things is called as gathering the information. Now, once you have gathered the information, it's important to process it. By process it, I mean that you structure it. And once you structure it, then you represent it by different ways of representing it. It could be pie charts, it could be bar graphs, it could be pictographs, and so many other ways of representing that data. So this whole process of right from the scratch, it is collecting the information till you present the data, is called as data handling. And we've seen some real life examples of data handling. Now we go again to we saw some real life examples. Now we see some applications here. So it says the government records, just as we've discussed previously, like population count, number of jobs, etc. And then we have school, like in school, again, we have a large number of students. So you have to have data of each child. So, their personal information and academic records. You have to keep record of every child. You just cannot, not have the record of, even a single child. You have to have the record of every single child. Then library. Libraries are huge because you have so many books. So just imagine, like, if we have all the books lying all over the place, how would anyone be able to find the book that they require? So it's important to structure it. It's important to make sections, history, geography, political science, mathematics, different sections, and then different grades. So that is how you categorize it. That is how you structure it. And then that's how you have it in your system, so that you can easily go to your library and fetch the book that you need. Then we have medicine store, again, a lot of medicines. So you have to have that. And company employee records, like just as in school and like as government keeps records, even the organizations, different multinational companies or even small companies keep record of the records of their employee, which is very important. That is their work details and every other thing. So we've seen real life examples and we've also seen the applications. Now with this, we'll move on to the objectives. So the objectives here are two, that is, we are doing questions based on the data represented as pictographs. So we'll see what a pictograph is. And the second one is questions based on the data represented as a bar graph. So there are various and there are many other ways of representing the data, but for today's class, for today's master class, we're just focusing on two types, which is a pictograph and a bar graph. So we'll one by one see what each of this is, and we'll solve problems on each of these, that is on pictographs as well as on bar graphs, of both levels, that is basic levels and advanced levels. So do gear up yourself with a pen and a notebook so that you can keep solving these questions with me, along with me. And if you have any doubts, you can always put that in the comment section, and if you know the answers already, you can put that also in the comment section. So we'll first start with what is a pictograph. Now, picto, if we break this word picto into two parts, like pictograph into two parts, which is picto and a graph. So picto means picture, something which is image oriented, picture oriented. So a graph which is picture oriented, is called as a pictograph. So if you were to begin, when civilizations were developing, like we were, the whole human race was getting into civilizations, the very initial phase of communicating to have scripts was pictorial scriptures. So we drew and we wrote and we communicated, like the writing form was in pictures, like people wrote it in picture form. we did not have words and alphabets at that time. So pictures represented information, or conveyed an idea. So the same thing is happening in pictographs. Instead of having, the words and everything, you have a picture which represents a quantity or an object, or, a certain number of objects in one single image. So that is a pictograph. So let's see. Pictograph means a picture that represents a word or an idea. So, we may use, we use pictures for different other symbols, like, you would have seen in normal places as well, like when we have carton boxes while we are packaging and everything, like there is a symbol of fragile, which says, handle with care. So to have one whole sentence there, who would read it? But if you just have an image of that fragile object, which can be easily be broken, just by looking at that object, we would be able to understand that the object inside this carton box is fragile, so do handle it with care. So pictures are very, very impactful. That's why also on roads, if you would see, all the road signs are picture oriented, because you just look at them and you understand it immediately. And instead of a picture, if you have one whole sentence or a couple of sentences, nobody has the time to read it, and it is not as impactful as an image is. So pictographs are easy to read since all the information is available at one glance. Just as I said, you just look at it and you understand the whole idea there. You don't have to really go deep into it and look for the information that it is trying to convey. You just have a look and you understand everything. So with this, we start with our first question. It says here, the pictograph shows the number of books read by students. Study the following pictograph carefully and answer the following questions. So you see a tabular column here. So there is a book tag that you can see. Now one book tag represents 4 books. So as I said, you have a book tag which is representing the books. And it's not just one book, because it's not only a limited number of books that a student has read, but a lot many books. So to have so many book tags in one table, would make it really big. Instead, what we did is, we considered, or we have taken it for a fact, that one book tag that we see here is equal to 4 books. Now, the question here is, which student reads the most number of books? Now, this is very easy because you just need to look at the different students and you need to know who has got more number of book tags in front of it. So we have students Kavya, Ranjani, Sneha, Chandni, and if we just look at it, we can tell that Kavya has got the most number of book tags against her name. So she is the student who has read the most number of books. So let's see what the options are. So here we have our options. We have Kavya, Ranjani, Sneha, and Chandni. So very clearly, Kavya is the correct answer to this question because we see a lot many book tags as compared to the other students. With this, we'll move on to our next question. It's the same question. It's just that the question, the bottom question has changed. It says, which student read twice the number of books as read by Chandni? So the first thing that we do is we count the number of tags that are there against Chandni. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So she has 5 tags. Now Kavya has definitely more than twice of what Chandni. So we, just by visual thing, we will rule out Kavya. Coming to Ranjani, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is not twice of it. Coming to Sneha, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So yes, this is exactly twice the number of books read by Chandni, because 10 can be written as 2 times 5, which is nothing but 2 times the number of books read by Chandni, because there were 5 book tags in front of Chandni. Now let's quickly see what the options are and if we do have the right answer. Oh yes. So the correct answer to this question is Sneha. That is, Sneha is the person who has, or is the student who has read twice the number of books read by Chandni. So this is how you solve. You see how easy it becomes if you just have pictures in front of you. You just have a look at it and it becomes all easy to answer these questions. Hoping that you all have understood this question, we'll move on to our next question. It says, the pictograph shows the same question. We come down to the bottom question. It says, what is the total number of books read by Kavya and Ranjani together? All right. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to count the number of book tags that are there against Kavya's name and then against Ranjani's name. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14 here, and then Kavya and Ranjan. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. So we need to add these book tags together, 14 and 8. So that is 12, 1 carried over, 8 plus 4 is 12. 2 we write down here, 1 carried forward, and then we have 1 plus 1, which is 2. So a total of 22 book tags are there, putting together the number of books read by Kavya and Ranjini. Now, this is not the right answer because this is the number of tags that we have, which is 22. Now, each tag represents 4 books. So we would need to multiply it. So 4 2s are 8, and then 4 2s are 8 again. So the number of books read by Kavya and Ranjini put together is 88. Now let's see if we do have that number in the options. So yes, option D is the right answer to our question, which is 88, just as we calculated. So we move on to the next part, which is what is a bar graph. So we saw what a pictograph was. We had pictures in the tabular column, and that gave away most of the information that we needed, the idea that it was trying to convey. Now coming to bar graph, again it's a graph, it's a way of representing the data, but in the form of bars. Like how we have chocolate bars, the same way, the rectangular bars in a graph represent the quantity that we're trying to show. Just as we saw, a symbol, which was a book tag, was representing, one book tag was representing 4 books, and then we had certain number of book tags against each child's name. Against each child's name, we may have a bar which is rectangular in shape. Just if I was to draw, it is a bar like this. Now the length of the bar would decide, you will have 2 axes here. This is the bottom axis, which is the x-axis, and this is the y-axis. Here you will have the names of the children instead of how you have the tabular column. Let's say this is child A, and this is 2, this is 4, this is 6, this is 8. So the bar has got a height which, if you draw a parallel here, is touching 8. So that would mean that the child has read 8 books. So this is just a simple example that I'm giving you with respect to a bar graph. So you have such bars, instead of having pictures which we had in Pictograph. So let's see what the definition is. So a bar graph can be defined as a chart or a graphical representation of data, quantities or numbers using bars or strips, just as I told you, the bars or the strips. Now bar graphs are used to compare and contrast numbers, frequencies, or other measures of distinct categories of data. You can also do comparison, you can do comparison between different months, like how many children were born in the month of January. So you can have a bar of January month. Then you can have the number of children who were born in the month of February. So you can have another bar. So you can compare the number of children which were born in the month of January and the number of children who were born in the month of February. So this is the comparison you can do. You can represent that in a bar graph form, and you can easily compare it. So with this, we move on to our next part, which are the questions. So here we have our first question. We see, instead of vertical bars, we have horizontal bars. Each bar is representing something. Let's see what each bar is representing here. The bottommost is representing secondary school students. Okay, so the number of secondary school students. This one is representing primary school students, high school students, and then this is the teachers. Now the question here reads, how many more primary school students are there than high school students? So let's have the options first. These are our options. Now how would we solve it? The key thing is, what you do, we are first to find out the number of primary school students. So I would go to the bar which is primary school students. Where it ends, I would draw a perpendicular on the horizontal line where the number of people were represented, and it touches 500. So that would mean that there are 500 primary school students. Now we can do exact the same thing for high school students. We would go where the high school students are. The bar ends here, and right from here only you would drop a perpendicular, and it touches 400. So that would mean that there are 400 high school students. The difference between 400 and 500 is 100. That would mean there are 100 more primary school students than what we have in high school students. So the right answer to this question clearly becomes option A. So I hope you've understood how to read a bar graph, as well as how to get the information out of it and then answer the questions. With this, we'll be moving on to our next question. Okay, it's the same question, but the bottom question has changed. It says, how many fewer primary school students are there than the teachers? So let's have the options first. Now we'll be solving it the same way as we had solved the previous question. We'll go to the primary school students, we'll drop the perpendicular. We already had found out that the number of primary school students are 500. Now the next thing that we do is we go to the teachers. So teachers is the top bar. We drop a perpendicular. So it is to be a straight line. I'll just take a straight line instead. Now you drop a straight line like this, and it touches 550. So 550 is the number of 550 is the number of teachers that we have in the school. So the difference between 500 and 550 is 50. So so there are 50 fewer primary school students than the number of teachers that are there in the school. So the answer to this question becomes option B. So let's go on to our next question. Okay, so as I had told you, right, I had given you an example in the beginning that you can have contrasts between months. So here what we have, contrast between the data of different months. Here it says, in which month is the difference between adults and children the least? Okay, so that means like for every month that we see in this graph here, there are two bars, that is one which is lightly shaded, the one which is darkly shaded. One of that would be representing the number of adults, whereas the other would be representing the number of children. So it is asking in which we have the least of the difference. So let's have the options here. Now if we were to look, if you would just look at it, we can clearly say that the answer is June, because we see the least difference between the two bars here. But let's go deep into the question. So if I draw a line like this, it touches the second bar here. So basically it comes to 220. This is 220 and this goes to 320. Oh no, it goes to 340, and this also went to 240. So 240 and 340. So the difference is of 100. Now likewise, if we go to the second one, here we would say that this is 120, and this is within the same thing, which is 180. So the difference is of 60. And you can do the same, but you see it's larger than this gap, and this also is larger than this gap, because if you would see, they are falling between the two lines itself, between these two things. So the correct answer to this question becomes option B. You can also draw, parallels so that they touch these numbers and you can actually find the difference. But even by looking at it, we can say that the least difference between the adults and the children is in the month of June. Moving on to the next question. Here it says, when is the temperature times 1/2 that of 9 a.m. Okay. So the bottom line, that is the horizontal axis, x-axis, is telling you different times. That is 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and 11 a.m. And at these different timings, the temperature was different, which is represented by the vertical axis or the y-axis. That is in degrees Celsius. Temperature is in degrees Celsius. 0, 1, 2, so on, so till 9 they have pointed it out. So we need to find when the temperature is 1/2 that of 9 a.m. So we'll first need to find what is the temperature at 9 a.m. So let's figure that out first. So this is 9 a.m. If we were to draw a straight line from the bar which is at 9 a.m. onto here, it touches 4. So 4 degrees Celsius. It is 4 degrees Celsius. Now we need to find 1/2 of that. So 1/2 of 4 degrees Celsius. Now this is a mixed fraction. We need to convert that into improper fraction. So how do we do that? We multiply this denominator with this number 1, which is 2 times 1 is 2. We add the product to the numerator, that is 2 plus 1 is 3, keeping the denominator same. 4. We now know 2 ones are 2, 2 2s are 4. So we are left with 3 times 2, which is 6 degrees Celsius. So we need to look at the graph which represents the temperature 6 degrees Celsius. So if you would look, this clearly is the bar that touches 6 and is representing 6 degrees Celsius. So the time for this particular bar is 8 a.m. So let's see what the options are. Okay, so we have 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. And as we have already solved this question up, we know that 8 a.m. is the time wherein the temperature is 1/2 of that of what it was at, or what it is at 9 a.m. So with this, we have solved all our basic problems. Now it's time that we start with some advanced level questions, some more trickier questions, so that you get more engaged and excited and you do solve it along with me. So let's get started with the advanced level questions. So here we are with some of our advanced level questions. The first question is here, which says, study the graph below and answer the following questions. Now it says, what is the starting letter of names of most of the students? So here you see a bar graph wherein there are letters which are listed on the horizontal axis, which is T, P, S, A, R, and D. If it's not very visible to you, let me just quickly write that up for you. So here we have T, this is P, S, A, R, and D. And on the vertical axis, which is the y-axis, we see which is a number, which is the number of students having the starting letter as these letters which are already pointed out on the horizontal axis. Now the question here read, what is the starting letter of names of most of the students? So that is the bar which is standing the tallest is the one with which is telling us the number of students which have the most the name of those students is starting with the letter which is appearing the most. So if we were to look at it very clearly, if we see and we observe, the answer is letter A. For most of the students, their name starts with letter A, and that is the right answer. Now let's see if we do have that option here or not. So we have S, A, R, and D. So yes, the correct answer to this question becomes option B, because the tallest bar is against the letter A. So most of the students have their name starting with the letter A. With this, we'll move on to our next question. Okay. Now it says, what is the total number of students whose names start with P, S, or R? Okay, so what is the total number of students whose names start with P, S, or R? So put together of P, S, or R. So again, I'll write it for you people. This is T, this is P, S, A, R, and D. And we are to look for number of students put together for P, S, or R. So these are the 3 letters that we have to focus on. So we'll find the number of students against these letters. Against P, we have the bar is ending here, which is 8. For S, the bar ends here, which is 12. And for R, the bar ends here, which is 10. So basically, we add 8, 12, and 10. 8 plus 2 is 10. We write 0 here, 1 carried forward. 1 plus 1 plus 1, which is 3. So there are a total of 30 students whose name starts with P, S, or R. Now let's see if we do have this number as our option. So yes, option C is the right answer to this question, which is 30. With this, we move forward to our last part of the master class, which is the learning outcomes. So we learned how to read and interpret a pictograph, learning how to represent data or information. Also, we learned how to read a bar graph along with the pictograph and how to fetch information out of it. So this is data handling. All in all is a skill to collect, organize, display, and analyze and interpret the information. So many things happening, and that's why it is called as data handling. That these are different ways you handle the data. You right from gathering the information to make it so presentable and so structured so that it becomes very easy to read, to fetch data out of it, and to understand what has been given in the whole of the representation that we have done. So as most of you know, but for those of you who do not know, the TUCO registration for 2020 has already started. TUCO is the ultimate Cuemath Olympiad 2020. If you want to give your child the exposure of such an examination, please do get your child or your students registered for it. The way you need to register it, the information that you need is all after this masterclass. So stay tuned. so that you gather all the information, you have all the information of how to go about it and register your child or your student for TUCO 2020. So as we all saw in today's masterclass, how logical reasoning inculcates the ability to think logically in a child, they start thinking in an innovative manner. They also strive to get to the answer in the shortest possible way. And this is exactly how a student gets trained by a Cuemath expert, and all of it is being provided in Olympiad masterclasses by Cuemath. So with this, I would like to introduce the TUCO registration forms. Every student who wishes to take up the real-time Olympiad examination by Cuemath, please go ahead and click on the link given in the description box below. The registration amount for TUCO is Rs 200 only, and the benefits that you get on registering for TUCO is that you get a complete course curriculum to prepare for it, which is worth Rs 5,000. So every time we have a masterclass, an Olympiad masterclass as we had today, which is scheduled, you can join us there and then later can work on extensive sheets on the same topic through the course curriculum provided when you register for TUCO. So make sure you do not delay and register yourself to get the most out of the curriculum worth Rs 5,000 just for Rs 200. And